The blaring alarm jolted Captain Aidan Novak awake. Red lights flashed through the darkened corridors of the RSS Dauntless. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Novak stumbled out of his bunk and hurried to the bridge, still fumbling with the zipper of his uniform. When he arrived, his first mate, Lieutenant Kira Tanaka, was already hunched over the sensor console, brow furrowed with concern. "Report," Novak barked. "What's going on?" "Multiple unidentified objects just appeared on long-range scanners," Tanaka replied tensely. "They emerged from the wart cloud at the edge of the system. Massive energy signatures. Moving fast on an intercept course." Novak felt his stomach clench. After decades of peace, could this finally be it? The day humanity had long feared. He strode over to peer at the readouts himself. How many ships? 50. No, 60 signatures and counting. Tanaka looked up, face grim. "Sir, the energy readings, they're off the charts. Like nothing I've ever seen. We have to alert HQ." Novak nodded curtly. "Send a burst transmission on the quantum relay. Initiate yellow alert and begin prepping all systems for a potential confrontation." This couldn't be happening. Not now. The Dauntless was only a light patrol ship, not equipped for heavy combat. Scouting the fringes of the solar system was supposed to be a milk run, a quiet retirement post for an aging officer before hanging up his uniform for good. Looks like fate had other plans. "Bring the Grande Royale-class cruisers online," Novak ordered, watching the flickering red specks multiplying on the screen. "We're the only ship out here. Until reinforcements arrive, we're humanity's first line of defense." The RSS Dauntless was one of the newest and most advanced ships in the fleet, a marvel of human ingenuity and engineering. Her Grande Royale-class cruisers, each the size of a small frigate, packed enough firepower to take on a battle cruiser twice their size. In theory, the ships were so cutting-edge they'd never been tested in actual combat. Nobody knew if they'd be enough against whatever was hurtling towards Earth. Novak felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily upon him. The lives of his crew, of the 11 billion souls on the planet below, all rested in his hands. He thought of his wife Lena, his daughters Mira and Kayla. They'd be huddled in front of the news feeds now, wide-eyed and anxious as the first uncertain reports began to trickle out, terrified for him. Whatever he had to do, Novak vowed, he would keep them safe, keep Earth safe, no matter the cost. A chime from the comm station broke him out of his reverie. "Captain, the outpost on Titan just went dark," Comms Officer Jai reported, voice shaky. "I can't raise them." The fear in the room was palpable now. Titan was their backup, the fail-safe, if the outpost there had already fallen. Energy readings spiking. Tanaka's voice cut through. "They're firing on us." Outside the view screen, a mass of blinding white light surged forth from the alien armada, arcing across the void towards their tiny ship. No time to evade. "Brace for impact," Novak roared. "All hands, battle stations." The world exploded. Consoles sparked and went dark as the ship lurched violently, hull groaning under the strain. Novak gripped the arms of his chair, jaw clenched as he watched their shields drain away to nothing. This was it then, the day of reckoning. Humanity's first contact. As the enemy closed in, Captain Novak straightened his shoulders, squeezed his eyes shut for one brief moment, pictured his girls one last time, then opened them again, gaze hard with resolve. "Bring all weapons to bear," he ordered, voice ringing with steel. "It's time to show these bastards what it means to mess with the human race." The Dauntless shuddered as another volley of enemy fire slammed into her weakening shields. Sparks cascaded across the bridge, acrid smoke filling the air. "Shields down to 15%. Lieutenant Tanaka reported, voice tight with strain. "We can't take much more of this." Captain Novak gritted his teeth. The Grande Royale-class cruisers were giving as good as they got, lancing out with their powerful particle beam cannons, but it wasn't enough. The alien ships were too many, too strong. And they were still coming. "Reroute all auxiliary power to shields," he ordered, "and send out a distress call on all frequencies. Let's hope someone's listening. He didn't voice the unspoken fear that it might already be too late. The enemy's opening salvo had been devastating, crippling their long-range communications array. For all Novak knew, the desperate transmission might never make it out of the system. They were on their own. He stared out at the seething mass of ships bearing down on them, trying to make sense of it. Who were these aggressors? Why had they come? Unbidden, long-buried memories rose to the surface. 20 years ago, the Erasmus incident. Novak had been just a young lieutenant then, a pilot on a routine survey mission past the Kuiper Belt. They'd expected to find only ice and silence. Instead, they'd stumbled upon something else entirely, an anomaly, blurry and indistinct on their scopes, a vast, sprawling something half-shrouded in the void. Novak had angled the ship in for a closer look, and that's when all hell broke loose. Alarms wailing, systems shorting out, the very fabric of space seeming to warp and distort around them. They'd barely made it out alive, limping back to base on a prayer and sputtering thrusters. In the aftermath, the powers that be had locked down any mention of the incident, classifying it top secret. Novak and his crewmates had been sworn to silence. But he'd never forgotten, and he had a sinking feeling that whatever they'd encountered out there had just come calling. "Captain!" Tanaka's shout snapped him back to the present. The dreadnought, its breaking formation, bearing down on us fast. Novak lurched forward in his seat, eyes widening. The dreadnought was a behemoth, easily 5 times the size of the Dauntless. It loomed over them now, bristling with enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble, and it was headed straight for them. Hard to port, Novak barked. Evasive maneuvers. The Dauntless veered sharply, Grande Royale-class cruisers whirling to maintain covering fire. But the dreadnought matched them turn for turn, relentless. "It's no good, sir," the helmsman said hoarsely. "They're too fast. We can't shake them." Novak stared up at the view screen, at the monstrous ship filling its frame, eclipsing the stars, saw the telltale flare as its main cannons began to charge up, a swirling vortex of pure destruction. They had seconds, maybe less. Dimly, Novak registered Kira shouting something about a massive energy surge. G yelling that they were being hailed. None of it mattered. Time seemed to contract to a single crystallized point. In that bottomless, yawning instant, a strange sense of calm descended over Novak. The fear drained away, replaced by a steely, implacable resolve. Live or die, this was a captain's duty, to face the darkness head-on, drawing courage from the remarkable men and women who looked to him for guidance and strength, who trusted him to lead them through to the other side. He would not fail them, would not fail his family, his homeworld. Somehow, some way, they would find a way to triumph. The dreadnought's cannons burned like captured suns, searing and merciless. Novak raised his chin, staring defiantly up into that blazing maw as it gaped wide to swallow them whole. To the last, he murmured under his breath, an oath and a prayer. To the very last. The world went white. Consciousness returned to Captain Novak in jagged fragments, piercing the blackness behind his eyelids. Pain lanced through his skull, his body screaming in protest as he tried to move. Slowly, arduously, he pried his eyes open. The bridge of the Dauntless was in shambles, a twisted wreck of smoking metal and shattered glass. Crimson emergency lights pulsed weakly, casting eerie shadows across the destruction. Groans of pain echoed from the darkness. "Report," Novak croaked, hauling himself upright. His head swam sickeningly. "What's our status?" A figure stirred nearby, resolving into the battered form of Lieutenant Tanaka. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, she answered grimly. "Comms and sensors are down. Engines non-responsive. We're dead in the water." Novak absorbed this, mind racing. By all rights, they should have been obliterated, reduced to their component atoms. The fact that they weren't could only mean one thing. "The dreadnought," he said hoarsely. "Why aren't we debris?" Tanaka shook her head. They just stopped firing, sir. Right before the final volley hit. almost like they wanted us alive, Novak finished, a chill snaking down his spine. Wanted, but for what? To capture? To study? To torture and interrogate, prying out humanity's secrets before snuffing them out entirely? The possibilities made his stomach churn. Sir, G's voice rang out, on the edge of hysteria. The dreadnought. It's hailing us again. On screen. Novak tensed, bracing himself. This was it then, the moment of truth. Put it through, he ordered. The view screen flickered, resolving into a nightmarish image. The being staring back at them was unlike anything Novak had ever seen. Grotesque and misshapen, a mass of writhing tentacles and pulsating, luminescent flesh. But it was the eyes that truly haunted him. Depthless black orbs swirling with a vast alien intelligence, coldly appraising, hinting at unimaginable cruelty. Captain Novak. The voice was a viscous, gurgling hiss. I am Craction, overlord of the Zortian Imperium. Your vessel is crippled, your crew at my mercy. You will surrender unconditionally, or face annihilation. Novak lifted his chin. This is Captain Aiden Novak of the RSS Dauntless. We will never surrender to you or your kind. This is our space, our home, and we will defend it to our dying breath. Craction made a wet, slithering sound that might have been laughter. Foolish human, you have no comprehension of what you face. We have ravaged 1,000 worlds, exterminated civilizations beyond counting. What chance do you think you have here at the end of all things? Novak clenched his jaw so hard he thought his teeth might crack. The human spirit, Craction, that's something you'll never understand. We don't lay down and die when things look impossible. We fight, we endure, we find a way. And we will fight you until the last star burns out. He looked around at the faces of his crew, battered but unbroken, saw his own unflinching resolve mirrored back at him. They would go down swinging if that's what it took. Craction's eyes narrowed to malevolent slits, then prepared to embrace oblivion, Captain. The screen went dark. Novak took a long, shuddering breath. This was it then, the final ploy, the last defiant charge. He turned to his crew, to these heroes who had fought and bled beside him, who now stared down the face of certain death, unflinching. You know what we have to do, he said quietly. Tanaka nodded, face grim but determined. The self-destruct, sir. Take them with us. No, said Novak. I have a better idea. Crazy, probably suicidal, but it just might work. He explained quickly, watching their eyes widen with understanding and a fierce, unquenchable glimmer of hope. It was a testament to their trust in him that they didn't question, didn't hesitate, simply nodded, jaws set with determination. We're with you, sir, said G, to the end. Novak took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. One last stand then, one final roll of the dice, humanity's fate hanging in the balance. He thought of his wife, his daughters, drew strength from their memory, their love. Live or die, he would make them proud. All right, people, Novak said, voice ringing through the shattered bridge. Let's get to work. The crew of the Dauntless scrambled to action, the last defenders at the twilight of the human race. Outside, the massed ships of the Zortian Imperium closed in, an inexorable tide of horror and destruction. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The crew of the Dauntless worked with frenzied urgency, hands flying across consoles, rerouting power, coaxing life back into the crippled systems. They were battered, bloodied, but unbroken, united in their desperate, audacious gambit. Captain Novak stood at the heart of the maelstrom, a pillar of strength and determination. His plan was bold to the point of madness, a last-ditch effort to snatch victory from the jaws of certain defeat. But as he watched his crew pour their hearts and souls into the task, he knew they would succeed. They had to. The fate of humanity depended on it. Engineering reports the sublight engines are back online, Lieutenant Tanaka called out, diverting all power to the forward shields. Helm, prepare to break orbit on my mark, Novak ordered. We're going to buzz their ships, draw their firepower away from the planet. Buy Earth some time for evacuation. Incoming transmission from HQ, sir, Jai reported, disbelief coloring her voice. It's the Valkyrie, sir. She's here. Novak whirled, heart leaping in his chest. The Valkyrie, the pride of the fleet, the most advanced warship ever constructed by human hands. If she had come, a flicker of renewed hope surged through him. Maybe, just maybe, they had a fighting chance after all. The view screen crackled to life, resolving into a stern, weathered face Novak knew well. Admiral Graves, he breathed. His commanding officer stared back, eyes flinty with resolve. Novak had always thought the old battle axe was indestructible, and seeing her now, he almost believed it. Captain Novak, Graves said, voice gravel and steel. How are you holding up, son? Novak shook his head in disbelief. Not too good, Admiral. That dreadnought did a number on us. We're crippled, but ready to give 'em hell. Graves nodded grimly. You've done well, Aiden. Better than anyone could have asked. But we've got a new wrinkle to contend with. She leaned forward, eyes intense. We intercepted a transmission from the heart of the Imperium. It's worse than we thought. They're not just here to destroy us. They want to harvest us. Use humanity as raw material for their twisted experiments. Novak felt his blood run cold. My God. That's not all. Graves continued. The Zorchans have done this before. Hundreds, maybe thousands of times. Entire civilizations wiped out, processed, reproposed into God knows what. She paused, letting the weight of that revelation sink in. But there's something different about Earth, something even they didn't expect. The anomaly, Aiden, the one you encountered all those years ago. Novak started, mind reeling. The Erasmus incident. He tried so hard to forget, to bury those haunting memories. But how could Graves know? Unless she'd known all along. The anomaly is the key to everything, Graves said urgently. We don't know what it is, but the Zorchans are afraid of it. Desperately so. We think it might be a weapon, Aiden. One that could turn the tide of this war. Novak gripped the arms of his chair, white-knuckled. A weapon. An alien weapon, here in our own solar system. It defied belief. But if it was true, if they could find it, harness it. What do you need from me, Admiral? He asked, voice rough. Graves smiled grimly. I need you to do what you do best, Captain. Fight like hell. Buy us time to evacuate, to rally our forces for one final push, and when the time comes, lead them back here, to the anomaly, to our last hope. Novak nodded, throat tight. Understood, whatever it takes. Graves' expression softened, just for a moment. Godspeed, Aiden. I know you won't let us down. The screen went dark. Novak turned to face his crew, jaw set. No more doubts, no more fears, only grim, unflinching purpose. You heard the Admiral, he said, voice ringing with conviction. We've got our orders. We hold the line, we buy time for Earth, and when the moment comes, we seize our destiny with both hands. He looked around at their faces, battered but resolute, the last best hope of humanity. We're not just fighting for our lives anymore, Novak said fiercely. We're fighting for our future, for the right to exist, to explore, to reach for the stars on our own terms, and by God, we will prevail. A ragged cheer went up from the bridge, a defiant roar in the face of annihilation. The crew of the Dauntless surged into motion, galvanized by a glimmer of hope reborn. Outside, the vast armada of the Zorchan Imperium loomed, an implacable tide of malice and destruction. But the humans would not face it cowering or afraid. They would face it head-on, unbowed, the light of courage blazing in their hearts. Come what may, they would fight to the last. For Earth, for humanity, for the future. The Dauntless surged forward, a battered but defiant arrow streaking towards the heart of the Zorchan fleet. The behemoth ships loomed before them, bristling with world-shattering weaponry, an impenetrable wall of malice and destruction. But Captain Novak didn't flinch, didn't falter. His eyes blazed with grim determination as he stared down the monstrous horde. Steady as she goes, he ordered, voice calm and unwavering. Keep those forward shields at maximum. Reroute all non-essential power to the engines. The crew moved like a well-oiled machine, hands flying across consoles, shouted status reports ringing out. They knew the odds, knew the terrible stakes, but they would not yield, would not break. Not while a single human drew breath. Incoming fire. Lieutenant Tanaka yelled, "Brace for impact." The dreadnought unleashed a blistering salvo, a storm of incandescent death howling towards them. The Dauntless shuddered as the blasts hammered into her shields, consoles sparking, the deck bucking beneath their feet. But she held, absorbing the onslaught through gritted teeth and sheer stubborn will. "Return fire," Novak barked. "Target their weapon systems, their engines. Don't let up for a second." The Grande Royale-class cruisers roared to life, lancing out with searing beams of pure energy. The Zorksian ships staggered under the onslaught, shields flaring, hulls buckling. But there were so many, an endless tide of horrors pouring from the void. For every ship they crippled or destroyed, a dozen more surged forward to take its place. A war of attrition, then, one they couldn't hope to win. But that had never been the plan. Helm, new course, Novak ordered, voice ringing with resolve. "Take us into the anomaly. Full speed." The bridge crew exchanged glances, faces pale but determined. They knew what he was asking, the terrible risk. But they didn't hesitate, didn't question. They had faith in their captain, faith in each other. The Dauntless veered sharp, engines roaring as she hurtled towards the shimmering, pulsing heart of the unknown. The same eerie phenomenon Novak had encountered all those years ago, the one that had haunted his dreams ever since. The Zorksians screamed in thwarted rage, a discordant chorus of fury and fear. Began to pursue, tentacle ships undulating grotesquely as they clawed their way across the stars. Desperate to stop them, to keep their dark secret hidden at any cost. "Captain." Tanaka's voice was hushed, almost reverent. "The anomaly. It's reacting to our presence. Growing, becoming more intense." Novak leaned forward, heart pounding. On the view screen, the shimmering vortex swelled before them, a whirling maelstrom of impossibility. Writhing tendrils of light and shadow reached out, brushing against the Dauntless' battered hull. He swore he felt the ship shudder in response, as if awakening from a long slumber. "It's now or never," Novak said, voice rough. "All hands. Brace yourselves." The Dauntless plunged into the heart of the anomaly, into the seething maw of the unknown. The ship bucked and heaved, consoles exploding in showers of sparks, the very fabric of reality straining at the seams. Novak clung to his chair, teeth gritted against the howling maelstrom. Watched in awe and terror as the vortex swelled to engulf them, a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and shapes. And then, sudden as a lightning strike, a blinding flash of purest white. Silence. The Dauntless drifted in a sea of stars, peaceful and serene. The Zorksian fleet, the desperate battle, all of it gone as if it had never been. They were alone in the void. "Captain." G's voice was hushed, disbelieving. "I'm picking up a signal. It's human, sir." Novak stumbled to her console, hardly daring to breathe. Stared at the ghostly image taking shape on the screen. A ship, achingly familiar in its lines and angles. A mirror of the Dauntless herself, proud and unbowed. His ship. "This is Captain Aiden Novak of the RSS Dauntless." A voice crackled over the speakers. His voice, but subtly different. Older, wearier, and filled with a terrible, aching hope. "I don't know how or why, but we've been waiting for you. Waiting for ourselves. The weapon the Zorksians feared. The salvation of the human race." The voice paused, heavy with the weight of destiny. "It was within us all along. It is us. A second chance. A new beginning." Captain Novak closed his eyes, understanding cascading through him like a revelation. Reached out to clasp Tanaka's hand, all of his fierce, unflinching crew. They had done it. They had won the impossible victory. Not just for themselves, but for all the countless Dauntlesses across the multiverse. All the indomitable crews fighting the same desperate battle, united in their courage and resolve. the inheritors of the human spirit, unbroken and unbowed. They were the weapon, forged in the crucible of annihilation. They were the future, the light blazing defiantly against the darkness. And they would not go gently into the night. They would rage against the dying of the light. The Dauntless sailed on, a shining beacon of hope in the silent depths of space, towards a new dawn, a new destiny. Earth would live. Humanity would endure. And the stars themselves would tremble before them. Here is a 600-word conclusion to your story, wrapping things up in a satisfying way. In the days that followed, the impossible truth spread like wildfire across the earth and throughout the far-flung colonies of humanity. The Dauntless, lost and presumed destroyed, had returned from the very brink of oblivion. Returned with a tale of courage, sacrifice, and final, desperate triumph against an implacable foe. Captain Aiden Novick and his valiant crew were hailed as heroes, the saviors of the human race, the men and women who had stared into the abyss, into the gaping maw of extinction itself, and had not flinched. They told their story to a stunned and disbelieving Earth of the horrors they had faced, the nightmarish Zorchian Imperium, the world-ending dreadnoughts, the twisted experiments seeking to unravel the very essence of what made them human. But most of all, they spoke of hope, of the indomitable power of the human spirit to endure, to overcome impossible odds, to snatch victory from the jaws of certain defeat. Across the world, people listened with rapt attention, caught between horror and awe, the realization that they were not alone in the universe, that a hostile power had nearly snuffed out their existence like a candle flame. But then came understanding, a growing swell of courage and resolve. They had been tested in the crucible of annihilation, had stared down their own extinction, and had emerged unbroken. Humanity would not cower in fear, jumping at shadows. They would stand tall, united as never before. They would rebuild their shattered fleet, shore up their defenses. And they would reach for the stars with renewed vigor, exploring, colonizing, coming into their own as a true interstellar power. No longer merely the inheritors of Earth, but the champions of their own destiny. For Captain Novak, the days passed in a surreal blur, a whirlwind of debriefings, press conferences, tearful reunions with his beloved wife and daughters. At times, it still felt like a dream, a fantasy that might shatter at any moment. But always grounding him were his crew, his fierce, loyal band of brothers and sisters, bound by the unbreakable ties of shared adversity. They would never forget, never allow the weight of their sacrifice to fade. They would carry the memory of the fallen, the brave souls who had given their lives so that others might live. They would honor them in word and deed in the rebuilding to come. And when the call came to take up the torch once more, to lead humanity's charge to the stars, they would be ready. Admiral Novak stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, the sleek, powerful flagship of the reborn human fleet, gazed out at the glittering expanse of the galaxy, the infinite promise of the unknown. At his side stood his loyal officers, his friends, his family, Commander Tanaka, stalwart and true, Lieutenant G, brilliant and bold. A new generation of heroes, ready to forge their own legends. They had come so far, endured so much, had stood upon the very precipice of destruction, and had dared to leap, to strive for a brighter tomorrow. Their destiny awaited, a glorious dawn breaking on the horizon. There would be challenges to come, dangers undreamed of. But they would face them as they always had. Together, unafraid. One hand on his ship's wheel, the other on the gleaming metal upon his chest, Admiral Novick felt a smile tug at his grizzled features. The Galactic Star of Valor, the highest honor the United Planets could bestow, earned in blood and fire, in the defense of all they held dear. But it was just metal and ribbon, a pale reflection of what truly mattered. The living, breathing heart of courage that had brought them through the darkness, the indomitable will that had proven the measure of their kind. Their true strength came from within, from the bonds of comradeship, the ties of love and loyalty, from the enduring power of the human spirit, unconquered and unafraid. And with that strength, that courage, there was no limit to what they might achieve. No star beyond their grasp, no dream too audacious. The universe beckoned, a vast and wondrous frontier waiting to be explored. Admiral Novak exchanged a glance with his crew, saw his own fierce resolve mirrored in their eyes. One last adventure, then, beyond the farthest horizon into the undiscovered country. To boldly go where no one had gone before. As the new horizon leaped into warp, blazing a shining path to the future, a mighty cheer rose from the throats of every man, woman, and child. One voice, one people, united in hope and courage. The voice of Earth, of humanity triumphant. Rising, ever rising, to take their place among the stars.